Good evening, everyone. How are you guys doing tonight? So you guys are not allowed to sleep on my talks, so I gotta put this real loud. So can you hear me now? Much better? Because you guys are not allowed to sleep while I talk, okay? Just for the records, let's put this in a real perspective, how the things really worked this morning when she said, no, because Alex is so fantastic, because he's this and he's that. Well, actually, for those who doesn't have a very good knowledge about us, Simone and my wife, they're very real close friends. So when Simone found out that Peter couldn't come tonight, she called my wife. And she said, I'm in need for someone to be talking tonight. And then my wife said, no worries, Alex will do it for you. So that's how the things really happen. So don't think that I'm that good, because I am not. So attending to superior, yes, attending to superior demands, here I am to try to do the talk tonight. So why don't you tell the truth to everybody?
Well, I wanted to make you look good.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. But we're going to be looking really good if someday in our lives we would be able to follow the instructions that we find in the gospel on our behaviors, on our attitudes, on the way that we talk to people, and the way that we treat people. The day that we master ourselves on that kind of behavior, on that kind of understanding, put into practice what we study from the gospel, then we're going to be looking good, for real, for good, forever. That's a long journey. That's a long way that we have ahead of us. But that's why we are trying to do something different. That on a Monday night, instead of watching Monday Night Football, we are all over here getting together to try to learn and see something different and get the things under a different perspective. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to be giving a real brief talk about the worldly person. The worldly person is a passage that we find in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 17, item 10. And this gospel, this chapter of the gospel is called Be Perfect. How interesting. The worldly person, under the chapter Be Perfect. So that means, at least on my understanding, that we can be as perfect as possible on this world if we follow the guidances and the orientations that we find in the gospel of Jesus. So the goal over here tonight is try to understand what kind of behavior Jesus is expecting from us. What do we got to do on our part to look good and try to put ourselves on the pathway of evolution and progress as he expects that from us. But before we go to the how to do it, let's try to understand the why. Why are we here? Why are we on earth? Because when we study Spiritism, we have clearly defined that we are not just flesh incarnated living on this world, that for some reason we have a soul inside of us. It's the other way around. We are immortal spirits that for now, for a certain number of years, we're going to be here on earth, living onto this perspective, so we can try to practice and get the lessons that we need to reach perfection. So if we are immortal spirits, what the heck am I doing over here? Why I have to be on this earth with this fatty body, fighting against the chocolate, trying to be away from chocolate, which is humanly impossible to be enriched in that. I don't know about you guys, but I have a huge problem staying away from chocolate. So why are we here suffering and having this kind of problems? Why? Why do we have to go through this life? And according to Spiritism, according to the Spirit's book, on question 132, Allan Kardec asks, what is the purpose of the incarnation of spirits? And the answer is, God imposes incarnation for the purpose of leading spirits to perfection. For some, it is an expiation. For others, it's a mission. Has also a further objective, which is to place his spirits on conditions where they can do their share in the work of creation. Their share in the work of creation. What this really means. That means if we look into the world as we know today, except for nature, everything else that we see on a matter perspective, it was created by man, not by God. Man was able to transform the resources that he found in nature to bring and transform these resources in something material that would benefit our lives or bring or make our lives easier and better. So that's how we have those scientists, as Sabin, for example, or Einstein, that brought us humongous and very important concepts, new concepts for sciences in the beginning of the 20th century. Or more recently, that's why we have Bill Gates and Steve Jobs creating those supercomputers, which are making our lives a lot easier. That's why we have all of these doctors spending their lives inside the labs trying to find the better resources for medicine so we can create and can take a better care on our body and our health. These are the missionaries, these are the spiritists which are contributing through the use of their intelligence, of their knowledge, to the share of creation, because the only thing that God had gave it to us was earth in nature, and we are transforming all of these resources in something better. So we are doing our share, we are doing our part in the big work of the creation. So as we use our intelligence to do that, we are also evolving ourselves, because the more that we use our brain, the more intelligent we become, more evolved we become. As more evolved we become, we are able to make better choices. When we make better choices, we get better consequences. It's all in linked and in chain. So that's why we have also to use and try to develop ourselves, not just on the material side, but also on the spiritual side, so we can grow together, both in the spirits and in mind as well, because good choices will bring us good consequences. So in this way, while contributing to the general work, they progress at the same time, which is the main reason why we're over here. We are here because we have to take part in this big work of creation, do our part, learn from that, get the experiences that we need to go towards perfection. So that's when all the problems start. Because once we are here, all of a sudden, for a strange reason, we just forget that we are spirits. And we start to think as we are just matter, just a flesh, just a body, for 50, 60, 70 years, I don't know how for long. Why is so hard to live on earth? Why is so difficult to be here? This then is the situation of the terrestrial humanity, because as the earth is a world of atonement, evil is the predominating factor. When the planet has been transformed, the pathway to goodness will be the one most frequently followed. So we still have this problem with this evil dominating our instincts, dominating our feelings, dominating our brain, because we let themselves, or we let be evolved or be involved by the word and these concepts that we have so many difficulties to fight against. We have so many passions out there. We have so many temptations out there. Chocolate is the worst of them. But besides that, we have a lot of other temptations also. Ice cream, the second one. I vote for that. I second for that. I agree. In ice cream chocolate or chocolate ice cream, it's impossible to resist. Come on, let's stop. I gotta focus here. I have a talk. I have a talk. Don't drive me away, please. Can I have a chocolate, please? Narrow and very, very narrow is the gate of salvation, because the great efforts, it asks a great effort on oneself to fight against our own imperfections. First, to recognize that we are not perfect. Secondly, to realize which are the most difficult imperfections that we have. And third, to fight against it. It requires a lot of effort, a lot of dedication, a lot of commitment in oneself to do this inner transformation that Jesus is asking for us. But actually, the worst part, the most difficult part, is just the first step. Because once we take this first step and then we commit ourselves for this transformation and we start to understand better the teachings and the lessons that Jesus gave to us, we're going to realize that it's not that difficult. When we open our minds to the abroad, when we open our minds and we look up to the skies and we see what else is out there, that it's not just this material life that we're living up to, we realize there is a lot of other things. And the rewards that we're going to get, it's a way much better and a way much bigger than any rewards that we can get from anything on earth. But we got to be committed, and we got to do something on the way that we're going to be able to reach the goal. There is a lot of things on this purification process that we gotta work inside of us. We gotta try to do better with our thoughts, with the words that we say, with our behavior, with our attitudes, how we behave with our co-workers, spouses, sons and daughters, and everything else. But why is so difficult? Why this evil is still predominate? Because as we see, the worldly voices are still much higher than our inner voice, or even than God's voice towards us. We pay attention, and if you look into this cartoon, dear God, how come I can never hear your voice? Of course, with the iPad and iPhone, listening to the music and watching to TV or playing with the computer and doing a lot of things at the same time, we will never be able to open up our ears to the God's voice. Maybe we have to take 30 seconds, maybe a minute or two out of our very busy schedules to concentrate ourselves in doing nothing. No, but I can't, because since the moment that I wake up from the bed, I have kids to feed, I have kids to drive to the school, I have to pick up these, I have to go to work, I have this, I have my house, I have my wife, my husband, and I have to cook, I have this, I have that, I have to go to church. Why? Why don't we just, before we step our foot out of the bed, we do that at 30 seconds, 60 seconds, evaluation and gratitude before we start our day. Later on, as we master ourselves on this behavior, we're going to be able to find maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes for a meditation, for a yoga exercise, you name it, the way that you find better to concentrate yourselves and reconnect ourselves to God. The word religion comes from the Latin religare, which means reconnect. Every and each religion on this world was based in the same principles. If you compare all the religions, 85 to 90% of all the teachings that we have in all the religions, it's exactly the same and couldn't be different, because the God is the only and one. Came from the same source. If it came from the same source, the teachings are always the same. So it doesn't matter how we look into that. It matters how we're going to be able to approach that. But it's very, very difficult, I know, because vanity says everything is for you. When we look into our neighborhood's new car or new house, or as we can say, our neighborhood grass is always greener than ours. In my case, it really is, because my neighbor, he works at the Scott, so he has that perfect, he has that perfect grass outside of his backyard, which makes me really bad. But anyways, that's something that we have to deal with. So vanity says for you, everything is for you. And then the pride, it tells you, you should be admired and obey it. Everybody should be looking up to you and say, oh, you are the best. And whatever you say, so you should be obeyed. That's what a pride tells us. The revolt says, not humiliate yourself. Do not accept a defeat. And sometimes accepting a defeat is the biggest victory that we can have, because we dominate ourselves. We accept that defeat because we know how to control ourselves. The lie tells us everything is wrong and you are the only one right. It's not the case over here, I know that. But I know other people out there that in a room with 20 people, especially on the meetings and everything, the guy says it's this and this and this way and this way, and all other 19 persons is saying exactly the opposite. But that guy keeps saying that he's the only one right on the room. Never happened to you guys, I'm pretty sure on that. But that's something that we can see quite frequently out there. Pleasure says, I want satisfaction and rest every day, all the time, all day long. That's what we found on these worldly voices. That's what the word is screaming out there for us. That's what we see on TVs, ads, newspapers, or even on the movies or in the soap operas and the programs and the shows that we watch over there. That's pretty much what a TV is teaching us and our kids nowadays. But we have a different perspective. As we are here tonight because we wanted to see a different approach and a different teaching. Maybe because we want to enlighten ourselves and we wanted to find out a new perspective or a new way to face life and face the problems that we have. Maybe we are over here because we are looking for different answers, because we are sick and tired of the answers that we are getting from the word out there. But if I'm looking for something different, the question is how to live on this word. What do I have to do to master myself on the Jesus teachings? Well, we can start on this life, on this incarnation. I would say we would need about 1,000 lives before we get close to understand on the deepest concept everything that Jesus had taught to us. 1,000 maybe, if you were lucky. Because if you look into the gospel, the 4 gospels that we know, if we look and we study all of those teachings, how many of those teachings we can really and honestly say, I know, I understand, and I practice? In my personal case, I would say for you, none. So it will take a long time to be just like him. But the good part of this is, once I started, it's a journey without return. There's no U-turn on this journey. Because we feel so good. We feel the peace. We can see the rewards that we're going to get from the spiritual life, not the material rewards. When we're talking about rewards over here, we're not talking about money or prestige or positions or power, nothing like that. We're talking about inner peace. We are talking about the true love flowing through us. We're talking about the pure love that we can embrace all of us and be the same and as the one on this wonderful journey. We are talking about and getting closer to God and feel the power and the love and the light that comes from Him towards us. These rewards, there is nothing on earth that we can get even closer to these rewards. But I come back in over here. How can I live on this word? Actually, God wants us to think on Him and have Him on a special place in our hearts and our lives. But He also wants us to fulfill our duties in the word. Living as we should live the man of our time. So is there any problem to have fun? Is there any problem to enjoy vacation? Get a plane and spend a week out of here, go to Colorado skiing, go to New Hampshire, maybe Hawaii, maybe Thailand, maybe a tour in Europe, maybe something different. Is there any problem on that? Is there any problem if I go out with my wives and my family to enjoy a day at the shopping, movies, restaurants, or anything like that? There's no problem on that. The real problem goes if we become or we turn this part of our life our only goal. We can live in the word without belonging to it. So we can just be part of it, but not let the word control our values. Because we have a kind of inversion over here. It's not our values which are controlling our behavior and what we want to see and what we want to do. It's what the word expected from us that controls what we do. when we live by somebody else's values, we are not having a true life. We are living as somebody else's want us to live. We are not living as we want, as we desire, as we know whether we have to live. We are acting and living to be or pleasure someone else, not us, not our values, not what we study. We do the things because the Word expects us to do like that. So we can live in the Word without belonging to it. Engaging, without leaving ourselves to be engaged by the vices, by the temptations, and the worldly pleasures that we have. For this, it's necessary that we drive our most sincere thoughts to God, so He can also help us and protect us against these temptations. That means that does not mean that we're going to be thinking on God all day long, all the time. But every time that we feel ourselves that we are kind of weak, that we are falling to temptations, let's bring Him closer to us. Let's bring Jesus closer to us. Let's get our power, our strength reinforced by these feelings, by the light that comes from Him. We can live and we can enjoy the pleasures of the world as the human condition allows us. What we must not do is abuse the pleasures and let them enslave us. Paul wisely says, all things are lawful to me, but not everything is beneficial. All things are lawful to me, but I will not be mastered by anything. I will control my own life. We don't have to live as fanatical people that just run away and do not anything of these material things get closer to them. But the problem is not running away. The problem is the access. It's the addiction that we have for these worldly pleasures that drives us nuts and takes us out of our journey. So if we have to live, if we can live on this world, taking pleasures or taking enjoying the pleasures, how to behave and not let ourselves be enslaved by this feeling. We can do this on a different ways and different things. One of the things that we should not do, we hear that a lot. Well, I cannot resist myself, so you know something, I'm going to move to the mountains. I'm going to buy a cabin out there. It's just me and the birds, and that's all. Nobody else is going to be around me, so I don't have iPhones, iPods, TVs, chocolates to buy in the grocery store. I don't have nothing, so I'm not going to be followed by any of these temptations that I have on the earthly life. Well, truth is, you're not facing your problems. You are running away from them. And we should not ever run away from our problems. Because, believe it, the problems, they can run faster than we can. They are always going to be following us, even if they don't run or pass us and going to be expecting from us on the next curve, on the next stop. There is no merit in isolating ourselves from the world, on the allegation or not wanting to be contaminated by the vices and the earthly pleasures. It is in this contact with these facilities, with these temptations, that we grow our strength to fight against those things. We have to learn, as Paul wisely said, I'm not going to be let to be mastered by any of these pleasures. I will control myself. I'll be the king of my own will, not what the other people want me to do. Resisting the dragging of these evil tendencies, it shows ourselves how strong we really are to face the evil that still exists on us. Because here, it's very important. We have two kinds of temptations. The earthly ones. These are the ones, let's say, that we can try to fight or do something against on a first step, on an easiest way. We can fight against chocolate. I'm not going to have chocolate every night. I'm just going to have chocolate every other day. It's a victory. And then I'm going to have chocolate just once a week. And then I'm not going to have a chocolate anymore, and then I'll be dead. But That will be for good. I'll be doing something for myself. I'm going to be taking all of this sugar and carbs out of my body. But if we start in a step, each step for each time, we're going to be fighting, or we're going to be making ourselves stronger to fight for the worst things. So we can start to fight against these worldly pleasures on the first moment, on the material things on the first moment. But that's another temptations, that another evil things out there that we need to face in a certain point of our life, which is the evil inside of us. The vanity, the pride, the hate, the desire of revenge. These will require a very strong will to fight against. But we need to start somehow. We need to start someday. We need to do that in a way that we can do it, that we're going to be able to follow these things. So how to behave on this earth? Follow the teachings and examples from Jesus. Look into the gospel, what he had told us, what he had taught us, what he had exemplified to us. Look into that and start to bring these into our daily lives. They represent the transformation from the old man. We used to be an old man with an old concept that we are a body, that we have a body, that we are a man, that we're going to live on this earth. And when we die, we will all go to heaven. Okay? We're going to be letting this old concept die with this fight that we're going to do with us, these world pleasures. We're going to be letting a new man, which is the new spirit concept, come and rise inside of us. We got to start to think, not in the next 10 or 20 years, but we got to start to think of the next 2 or 3 incarnations. What am I going to do now that are going to be collecting the consequences later on, for good and for the bad? For the good part and for the bad part as well. What I'm doing for someone in an evil thing, or bringing prejudice for someone, that will be collecting the consequences in the future. If we start to pay attention on what we're doing now, on what we're being sowing now, I'm going to be much more confident what I'm going to be reaping in the future. Whatever we do now, we're going to be collecting the consequences in the future, for the good and for the bad. So we got to pay attention and let this transformation for this new spiritual concept taking care or be in control of our lives. Also, earth is our test track. That's here is where we put in practice everything that we learn, everything that we bring from the spiritual world. Because on the spiritual realm, we don't feel cold, we don't feel the heat, we don't feel hungry, we don't have these earthly necessities. We have houses, we have friends, we have family. We don't have these problems surrounding us. So up there, we're not going to be able to try ourselves with all the teachings that we receive. How can we practice tolerance if I don't have enemies? When we are in the spiritual realm, we're going to be living together and close to the ones which we get a better affinity, a better link. We're going to be closer for the ones that we love. How can I practice tolerance with people that I love? Grandkids, for example. We don't practice tolerance with grandkids. It's impossible. They do on us whatever they want. So it's a very stronger relationship. But we do practice tolerance at the work environment a lot, every day, every minute, I would say. So here is our test track. Here is where we put in practice, we put a test, everything that we learn. We have some examples on how we should be behaving over here. And these examples, for example, it was extracted from the book Contos e Apólogos. There is no translation into English yet, by Brother X. It's in chapter 22, and this message is called Christian Conduct. And for example, when calumny reach us, what should we do? And according to this message, according to this book, we shall forgive and work, enabling the renewal of the judgment people have about you. So it's not saying you go over there and you fight against it. You show who you really are. You put your word out there and say, you know, you were wrong, etc., etc., etc. They didn't say anything about it. You say, you shall forgive and work, and keep working, and making you the examples and the instrument of transformation and lessons for the others. Not on what you say, but on what you are. Not what you do, but how you behave. Not on how you react, but how you act. Reaction means that something is bothering us. Action is when we, on our own will, we go out to help someone or do something good towards someone. Also, facing the creatures in bad faith. And the book says, you shall forgive and work, doing as much as possible to bring them in the level of your understanding, excusing and supporting them infinitely. Not even 7 times 70. It's infinitely. Yes. 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 But Spiritism is this integration process between man and the Word, because it explains to us and makes us very knowledgeable on why we should be doing this. Because we don't live just once. We don't have just this life. We are on a journey. We are in a process. And every time that we come over here, it's another lesson that we get. It's another opportunity to evolve, to progress, and to learn something different. So if we have this perspective, everything else loses value or loses its importance in our lives. But the thing is, every time that we're going to make a decision that we do something, we are thinking on this earthly life that we have. We are not thinking as spirits. So Spiritism help us to bring and to take into our lives a different and totally new perspective. To see ourselves as we really are. Immortal spirits. Sons and daughters from the same God. Created on the same way, from the same source, with the same potential, with the same love, and the same spark inside of our hearts. We are all the same. We can do the things that Jesus did, and even more. We have the same power. It's just a matter of us to give a push on this power that we have and let it go and comes outside and take care on us. On these messages, it's very important. Live with man on your time, how to live man. We should not be running away on anything of this. And actually, there is another example which I like a lot. I'm not going to go into the details on that because I'm running out of time. But on this book, which is Paul and Stephen, which is one of the most important books on the Spiritism doctrine. On this book, for those which are not familiar with that, it's the transcription, it's the history of Paul of Tarsus when he was Saul, and then after when he became Paul. So it tells everything about his transformation, what happened to him, why he was chosen by Jesus to be his most important disciple, let's say, on this for the Greeks and for the Asia, the power, the commitment that he had, and everything. It's a wonderful book. And on this book, there is a passage right after he comes out of the desert, after he spent 3 years in the desert, when he was very depressed, lots of thoughts, a lot of doubts, a lot of questions into his mind, and he was kind of lost. And in a moment of real inner consultation for himself, he put himself on his knees and he started to pray to God and to Jesus to come and help him out. And then all of a sudden, Abigail, which used to be her fiancée before she passed away, before she died, came to him on a vision. And then Paul started to talk and ask her, because I need you, I feel the love, I don't know what to do, I have gone through so many things, I have so many questions, I have so many doubts, I don't feel strong enough to face this challenge ahead of me, I cannot transform myself. So he put everything that he was feeling, he put it outside. He was doing a kind of a psychological treatment with his fiancée, with the Abigail. And then he asked her, what can we do to acquire a perfect understanding of Christ's designs? Look at this question. What can we do to acquire a perfect understanding of Christ's designs? And the answers that she gives is to love. With the deepest meaning that this word can have to us. Not to love husband and wife, sons and daughters, kids, grandkids, relatives, but to love on the most broad concept of this word. Forgiving, forgetting, helping, being proactive. When we do that, we're going to be acquiring this perfect understanding on the Christ's designs and teachings. He also asked her, how can we proceed in order to grow richer in divine virtues? How can we do things better to be learning more and more about these teachings that we got? And the answer is work. Not at our office, not at our professions, but work towards those which are in need, helping others. Engage ourselves in something meaningful for others, not just for us. That we can give a part of our time towards someone which is in need. The other question that he asks is, what measures could we adopt against destructive discouragement? And the word is hope. Keep the hope all the time, always. And finally, how are to reconcile the grand lessons of the gospel with the human indifference, injustice, and difficulties? And the answers, as she started to fade away in front of his eyes, was forgive. So here, we have a few other examples in how we should be behaving and acting into this word. To love, to work, to hope, and to forgive. It resumes pretty much very well all the teachings and everything that Paul applied to his life on his final years towards the propagation and to dissemination of the Christ's teachings during his reigns. And to wrap up our meeting tonight, I brought over here a brief message from Emmanuel that was published in the book on the magazine Reformador in Brazil in November 1951, which says the Christ's voice. And that's comparing about the earthly voices that we saw at the beginning of the talk tonight. So on this article, Emmanuel says, if anyone, and Christ says that, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. There is a profound difference between the earthly demands and the voice of our celestial friend. Those who has ears to hear, listen to them with your heart while it's time to sow. The word says, make yourself comfortable as you wish. And the Christ says, get up and walk. The word tells us, do whatever you want. And Christ says, sin no more. Destroys your opponents. That's what we listen from the word. And Christ says, love your enemies. Hurts those who hurt you. That's what the word expected from us. And the Christ asks, ever forgiving. rest and enjoy. And the Christ says, move as you have the light. The word asks us, accumulate gold and power to thyself. And Christ says, probably tonight we'll ask your soul, and what do you accommodate all of these values for? What the word is asking from us is totally different from what Jesus is asking from us. Should we leave, or should we just forget the word? No, we can live on this and take the advantage that we have. But we cannot let ourselves to be dominated by those values, because our moral values, our true values, are based on the gospel of Jesus. And this is the pathway which will guide us towards back God and towards our perfection and evolution. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I hope you guys have a great week. Thank you.